Good evening all. Uh, Good evening. How are we? Good evening all, and welcome to the second edition of tonight's webinar. Now, all those who tuned in live, you would have seen the best webinar ever. Obviously, those who missed out, I'm recording it again because not my fault, I'll blame the computer. I didn't pick up the recording too well. It's now the second time I've used that computer and it's done the same thing, so you'd hope I would have learned the first time, but I haven't. So here we are again. I didn't want you guys to miss out, so you probably won't get, it won't be as good as the first one, but I'll fly through and at least you'll get a taste of what tonight's webinar was all about. So what we're looking at is, purchasing property as a young investor, and what to do first. It's a question I get all the time: do you buy your own house first or an investment property? And look, that's a big question on everyone's mind. So I thought let's have a look at a couple of examples here and try and get to the bottom of it. Apologies, introduction. So my name's Jake. I'm the Young Investors Club president. And also a branch manager here in Queensland as part of the property club. So what do we do first, our own home or an investment property? So the best way to look at this is we'll compare two couples. So we've got the Smiths and we've got the Browns. The Smiths are going to purchase a property or their own home, whereas the Browns are going to buy an investment property. So look, to keep things even, both couples the same. They've got a combined income of 90,000, a credit card of 10,000, and they're living at home with their parents or some friends maybe, but they're not paying any rent. Okay, so it just makes it easy from a servicing point of view to keep them both the same, and so you can really compare the two scenarios. So there you go, the Smiths and the Browns. So the Smiths buying their own home, okay, the maximum they can borrow, as we can see, there's 501,000. So that's as an owner-occupier. Let's now look at the Browns, okay, and what they can do as an investment. 723, big difference. The main difference is the the rental income that's coming in from that investment. That's going to help supplement the mortgage and pay some of that shortfall, and they're going to have those negative gearing components as well, which is going to help with their serviceability. So you can see there the Browns can afford something more expensive than the Smiths. Now, yes, provided they've got the funds to complete, so they've got the deposit funds there, which they do, which is great. So you can see the difference there between what they can potentially buy as their own home compared to that as an investment. So let's now look at the Smiths. So they had obviously they had one of our club approved brokers from the property club or the Young Investors Club, they've managed to get 500,000. You can see their maximum borrow before was 501, so they've got that over the line, so well done to that broker there. So they've got their own home, 500,000. They're now wanting to buy an investment property. Okay, they've been listening to our webinars and coming to our great events, and they're now aware that they want to build to their portfolio and add properties to that, because it's a great way to create wealth. So they're now wanting to buy a property for $500,000. Now can they do it? No, 269,000. So you can see by buying that the property as their own home first, or living on their own property, they sort of handcuff themselves a little bit. So yes, they can still get a loan, but it's a lot less than what they're looking at doing. Now let's look at the Browns. So they're they've got an investment property. So it could have been potentially the same property, but they've moved out, or they bought as an investment. They're now wanting to buy something for the same price. Now we saw the same parameters, so don't forget that Smiths and the Browns, same income, same everything. You can see there they can borrow 523,000, big difference from 269. So that's purely because their first property was an investment as opposed to their own home. So there's the comparisons there. 269, 523. Now, interesting, I just thought I'd throw this in there. Now, I should just clarify quickly, all these numbers, I sat down with our broker of the year, yesterday, Harinder, and these are actual servicing numbers from one of the lenders. I believe it was CBA's, from their serviceability calculator. So these aren't just numbers plucked out from anywhere. These are up-to-date current numbers as of yesterday, how they're assessing these loans. So you know the figures I'm giving you here are, for this example, are bang on accurate. So there's a little thing for you. So let's just say the Smiths do want to, they're going to stay in their own home. Their income needs to go up by 20% to be able to service that new debt of $500,000. So that's a pretty big jump, unless you're, you've got an internal promotion or something like that where your income's gone up dramatically. If your wages are just increasing by CPI, that's going to take you, a long time, and in that time, property prices have gone up. So you can see there, unless something drastically happens, they're not going to be able to afford to buy that property. Let's throw another little curveball in the mix. What happens if you have kids? I've just had a little man myself, little Aston, bundle of joy, but it's a lot more difficult now to buy properties now we've got a kid. So let's have a look at how that can affect this particular couple here. So we'll take the Browns. Because the Smiths aren't going to look too healthy. They're the ones who have got their own house, whereas the Browns have got the ability to be able to borrow. So let's have a look. So no kids, as we know, they could borrow $523,000. Let's throw one kid into the mix. Okay, so now they're down to 500. So not a big drop, but a drop nevertheless. And then if we have two kids, they're down to 433. And you can see there, I'll put there, if the Smiths, with the same scenario, so living in their own home, they'd be at 177. So you can see the difference a couple of kids can make in the mix there. Now, different scenarios, these numbers change, and normally more drastically than that. I know from my personal experience at the moment, my son, bless him, is probably costing me about $90,000 from my serviceability. That's not factoring in my partner not working. That's just the fact that by having one dependent, that it's really hampered my ability to be able to service a loan. So there we have it. So the Smiths, they've bought their own house, which is great. I mean, they've got their piece of land and it's all their property. It's growing in value. I've used a 10-year doubling here just to make numbers easy. Now potentially it could take longer, and nowadays it probably will. With things like the GFC and whatnot, it's affected the time properties have taken to going up in value. I say that though, I mean, we've got a property in Sydney that's probably doubled in 6 or 7 years, so it's still possible. But for just this sake, we've doubled in 10. So you can see there, the Smiths have got one property, the Browns have got two. And the Smiths has done well, so they bought it for $500,000. 20 years time, it's worth $2 million, which means they've got $1.5 million worth of equity. But the Browns, because they had that investment property, they were then able to buy another property, and now they've got $3 million worth compared to 1.5. So you can see how much of a better position they're in there. Now, just to clarify for those people out there unaware of that term, equity, that just means the improved value based on the original debt or the debt against that property. So you can see their purchase price of $500,000. It's now worth $2 million, so $1.5 million worth of equity. So it's just the increased value of that asset based on the debt that's on it. So that's all that is. You'll hear that term a lot, but it's simple as that. So here's a couple of quick things to consider as well. Equity or increased value is time. I'm sure we can all relate to have a think about what our parents or grandparents, place is worth and what they probably paid for it, some ridiculous number. And, they've had it for a long time. And you can see how the longer you've got it, obviously, the greater the increase in value there. So if you can get into the property market when you're young, it can only be good things. And the key is to try and buy a few before you start having kids and buying your own home and things like that. So myself and my partner, my wife, we were able to buy five properties before having kids or anything like that. and we've now got our sort of I guess our dream home a little bit, our family home. But we bought 5 properties before doing that, so we knew the way to get to that goal is to make sure we get some investment properties first. If we were to buy our dream home from the start, we would have been handcuffed. We might have been able to get another one or potentially squeeze another one, but certainly not to the point we're at now. So it's really set us up. And we did it before having kids as well, so we saw there the impact having a dependent or even two can really affect your borrowing there. So look, if you can, look, everyone's situation's different. Things change in life, but plan ahead, and if you've got the ability to do something before that happens, then I strongly recommend you do that. Interest-only loans. So this is quite important. If you're just paying the interest component, obviously your repayments are less, so therefore less money you need to pay to hold on to that asset. And it's important because, and especially when you go down to one income, so I think about, I'm using myself and my wife here as an example. Now she's off work and on maternity leave, and she'd like to stay that way. I don't think she's got any plans on going back anytime soon, but I think she'll have to. But for the time, so what I made sure we did was extend our interest-only periods before she finished working. So what you need to be able to do is service the loan you've got. So if we were to drop down to one income, so it was just my income, and we had these properties, I wouldn't have been able to service the debt just on my own income. So we needed to do that whilst Nikki was still working. We used her income and my income. We were able to extend those interest-only periods on those properties. So while she's not working, we're only paying the interest component on that loan, therefore making it a lot easier for us to hold that portfolio. So if that then became a principal and interest, we'd have a fair bit more of a shortfall there, and we'd be a little bit stretched. So it's important to make sure you try and extend those interest-only terms when things like that happen. Think about loan splits. So what that means is the way you apportion the loan, what shared percentage each person has. And so like myself and my wife, we've got a few properties that are 50-50. You make most of your deductions in the first 5 years, so talk to your accountant about all this sort of stuff. But you do make most of your claims in the first 5 years. So, and that's where all your negative gearing component comes from and your deductions that way. So what we did, we bought a house, or a property I should say, not long before she finished working, maybe 18 months or so before. Made sure we apportion it mostly in my name. I believe it was 99-1. And so that way when she stopped working, we're only missing out on 1% of the deductions that can be made, whereas I'm making the majority. If we were to have purchased that at 50-50, when Nikki stopped working, obviously half of the deductions that are available from that property we can't claim back because she doesn't have an income. So it's important to think about all that sort of stuff as well. So let's say, if you're going to purchase a property, you've got to plan on having a family soon. If you buy that on a 50-50 split, you're going to be missing out on a large amount of your deductions there if one person's not drawing a wage. So really think about that a little bit. This is a bit more advanced, so don't worry if this goes over your head, but we set up what's called a family trust. That way my wages are paid into the trust, and then I can distribute out to Nikki, so she can actually still get a wage. It's a way of reducing tax, and then she's still getting a wage and she's still got those negative gearing benefits associated with her properties there. So that's a bit more advanced. If you've got a few properties, that might be an option. Talk to your accountant. That's just what we've done. I'm not giving you advice one way or the other there, but that's sort of what I've done and what we've done, and it's going to help us. And look, so like I said, if the wife's on extended maternity leave, like I feel like mine might be if she has a way, try and buy more properties just on your wage. If you can't, then that's fine. You've already got a couple behind you, hopefully. But if you're able to, go ahead and do it. Being young, got more options by buying more properties, and I've always had the mindset if I've got the ability to be able to borrow, I do, and I have. And then once you get back on two incomes, so eventually when your partner might go back to work, you've now got two incomes which will help you get some money out of those properties. So let's just say the Browns had those two properties. They've now gone up in value to be able to get some equity or out of those properties. So they might want to buy some more properties to get some equity out. They need to refinance those loans. To be able to refinance the loans, it's important to know that you need to be able to service the new debt on the property. So when you purchased it at $500,000 using your income, that was fine. If it's gone up to $1 million, to be able to get that extra money out, you need to be able to service that new loan. So it's important to know that. So trying to get equity out on one income, unless it's gone up considerably, you're quite difficult. So that's why when you're back on two incomes, you can look at harvesting or getting some of that equity out of those existing properties. And not only that, but then you've got two incomes to service a new loan on a property. So we call it upstamping. So that's just increasing your current debt on that property that's got equity. So then you can get that out and start doing some other things with it. A couple of little points here, things to know about borrowing money and effects different things can have on that. So one is credit cards. That's a big thing. So you can see there I've got limit. It's not debt, it's limit. So that doesn't, you might pay that off every month, and it's always a zero balance at the end of each month, but they'll still assess it. Banks will still assess it that it's fully drawn. So you can see there a $10,000 card can impact you by $40,000. If you've both got $10,000 credit cards, even though you might not owe anything on it, that can impact you by $80,000. So when you catch up with the broker, he might say reduce your debt or cut up that card, get your loan. Once the loan settles, then you can look at reapplying again for those credit cards. As you know, it's not hard to get a credit card. Banks try and throw that plastic at you. So that's a way you can dramatically improve your serviceability. You can see they're earning an extra $10,000, and how that affects how much you can borrow. So go get another job, earn a few extra bucks. So when I was young, or younger, well, I should say young, I'm not young anymore. I certainly don't feel young with the little one, that's for sure. I had 3 or 4 jobs. So worked. I had a landscaping business, so I did that. I'd pour beers. I'd work at the golf club. I'd work at a bakery. Different things like that. Just earn a few extra bucks. And you can see there what a difference that can make. So just an extra $10,000. So that can be, that's $200 a week. That's pouring beers on a Saturday or a Sunday or something. It helps you get another $90K potentially. So, short term, work hard, can help service loans. It's you got to do these things to get ahead. And credit score. So that's a big thing nowadays as well. Is your credit score, and that does have a big impact on your serviceability. The broker will be able to tell you more about that, but that's really, within the last couple of years, that's become a big thing. You might have heard of, there it is there, Veda. So they're one of the big companies there that track your credit. This is actually mine, from a few excuse me, from a few years ago. Just grab a drink. You can see there the number, the 721 number there. My understanding is, anything from about 600 or 650 up is quite a reasonable score. If you start going down and that, you can tell by the colour there, you're going to the ambers and the reds, and you don't want to be there. So it's important to keep track of your credit score. Now, talk to your mentor, and they can get in contact with your broker. You can probably get this done for free, so you can check your credit scores, and it can be potentially important to do this before you even start looking at doing loans as well. So let's compare these two scores. So that was mine up the top there, 721. You can see here underneath. So similar person of the same age and things like that. Now, if you look at, I don't know if my cursor's working on the screen. If not, look at the total number of inquiries, 14, both 14, but look at the total number of value of those inquiries. So you can see mine, there's 2.8 million roughly. That's me acquiring loans for properties and that sort of thing. So, but if you look down the bottom, half that, 1.3 or 1.4 million. So only half of what I've been inquiring for. But if you look at the bottom line there with that default, that's detrimental to your credit score. So 3,000, that might be, say, an unpaid tax bill or a personal loan payment you've missed, and you can see how much that's impacted their score. So potentially, like, their score would be up near mine, but because of one default, it's really hit them down. And that score there, I mean, I've seen it before. That's enough to get loans declined for sure. They're called mortgage insurers. They look at this quite heavily, I understand. And so you can see there the importance of being able to pay your loans on time, not have any defaults, because that's a big one there. So what goes on your credit file? So there's a list of things there. So loan applications, and just inquiries doesn't mean you've taken the card out. You might have just lodged online to see how much you can borrow and things like that. All those nimble, fast money things that you see popping up, those 60-month interest-free things you see from Harvey Norman, but they're all hits on your credit file. Basically anything that's billed to you, so like I've got there, a phone bill, a utilities bill, they'll all appear on your credit score. Now, if you're paying them on time, they'll come up as a 0. If you're making late payments, so that they'll come up and affect your score. So really important that you have good credit, you're paying your bills on time, and you're sort of keeping low, I guess. Don't go applying for silly stuff online, and I won't pick on the females here, I'll just say partners. I've seen quite a few where it's been a bit of an eye-opener for the other partner to see what things the other one has been doing without their knowledge, and they've been not approved loans because of it. So this has really become a big thing. So like I said, you can have your mentor put you in contact with a broker. They can check your credit score for free, and yeah, that goes a long way in acquiring a loan for sure. So got any questions? Now it's just me on the webinar at the moment, so no questions, which is great. Look, I had one come through on a live one earlier, which was regarding the first homeowners grant. So, if I'm to buy as an investor, what happens to the first homeowners grant? I'm a big fan of utilising government grants and incentives in place to leverage into property. I did a talk at the national conference about that. Basically, though, there's no reason why, and I'm a big fan of this, is buying a property as an owner-occupier. So then, to start with, so you do get I'll use Queensland example, you get the 20K first homeowners grant, you get the stamp duty concession, you live in the property for a year, you then turn it into an investment property. Okay, so you've utilised the grants, you've lived there, you've, won't say done your time, but you've stayed there, so you're able to keep those monies. You then move it out, turn it into an investment property, and potentially that's what the Browns did on the previous slide. It's now an investment property. They're then ready to service a new loan because they've got, like we saw before, they've got that rental income coming in from the property. That's going to, and they've got the negative gearing components because it's now an investment, so that's really going to help their serviceability and acquiring a new loan. So that was a good question that came through, so I thought I'd just cover that one quickly. If you've got any more, please come back to me on the email that this will be attached to, and talk to your mentor as well. Really look forward to having you on some live ones. Next time I'm adamant that I'll get the recording done, not on the computer I was at. Hopefully you enjoyed tonight's presentation though, and look forward to seeing you at one of our Young Investors Club events or Property Club events very soon. Okay, take care all, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks.